Hello and welcome back to another video. This is going to be a very short video showing you how I draft out a circle skirt. Just keep watching and see how I do it really, and you can always pause and rewind if you get confused.
Using a waist measurement of 32 inches and a length 22 inches for this skirt. The first thing that I need to point out to you is this calculation here, circumference, which is equal to pi radius. Now, the circumference is going to be this waist measurement. So I've got the skirt. Imagine we've got a skirt here. This is the waist. This waist is our circumference. If this is our circumference and that's the waist, we're trying to figure out what the radius is going to be. So in order to work out the radius, we need to go ahead and calculate 32 equal 2 pi r, and r would then be 32 divided by 2 pi, and we know that pi is 3.142. So I'm going to do my calculation and find out what r is. So using my calculator, I would know that I know that 2 pi is 3.142 multiplied by 2 is 6284. Decimal point goes there. So I would go ahead and calculate 32 divided by 2. 32 divided by 6.284, and that would give us 5.09. This is really minuscule, so I'm not going to I won't worry about this decimal here. I would go with a radius of 5 inches. So our radius for this pattern would be 5 inches. Now I'm going to take all of this to work out and create my sewing pattern. And I'll start with a straight line. And then I'll have another straight line going across the other way. My spot and cross paper helps me to get an accurate 90-degree angle there. So now that I have this drawn out, I'm going to extend this to make it longer, because my skirt is going to be 22 inches. Next thing I'm going to do now is I am going to map out that 5-inch radius we calculated a few minutes ago. 5 inches. The next thing to do now is to measure out 5 inches from your measuring tape using your compass. I've got this right at the edge of my compass and I need to get to 5 inches. 5 inches is right there. So now I'm going to put this right there. Yeah. I need to go ahead and measure and make sure that this works out to be 1/4 of the waist of this of the waist measurement. Yes, it's just about 8 inches. Yeah. So if we have this as 8 inches, 8 inches is 1/4 of the waist, which means that if I multiply this by 4, I will get 32 inches, which is the exact waist measurement. The exact waist measurement. Now, think about it. If we have this, if we cut out our skirt pattern, if we cut this out on our skirt fabric, 8 inches for the waist, for this pattern piece, we're going to have exactly 32. What happens to the seam allowance and the zip? You need to think about that. So now we need to do a bit of troubleshooting and figure out how we're going to solve this problem. Now, if I were to go down by 1 inch, my waist, the waist here, this line here would then get wider. So we need to go down by 1 inch. I'll use this to mark out 1 inch. Right, so watch what I'm doing. I'm not measuring this on the inside, I'm measuring it on the outside. It's easier that way. And I've got my tape roll exactly at the edge of the pattern piece. So I'm going ahead and I'm measuring it. And I'm walking it gradually so I don't add any extra bits to my waist measurements. Now I have this at 10 inches. That's 10 inches. Now, if this here is 10 inches, so this here is 10 inches. I cut this on the fold. If I cut this on the fold, I would have on this very end here, an extra 2 inches. If I have an extra 2 inches here, what does that tell me? I shouldn't have gone that far. I should have gone in by half an inch. More troubleshooting. We learn as we go. I think this is the best way to learn, making mistakes. So I'm going in by only half an inch. I love sewing. I love creating patterns. And I just love the problem solving part of it. I know it can be quite annoying and time consuming, but that's just part of the fun of it. And I love maths as well, so it's a win-win. Right, we're going to measure this again. Okay, walking my tape measure along the seam line, or no. That's the seam line, I think. 9 inches, fabulous. So this here is 9 inches. Now we can see that that's 8 inches, this one here. That's 8 inches, 9 inches, and 10 inches for the waistline. I'm cutting this on the fold, which means I do not need a seam allowance there. This side here I would have at 1 inch. If I cut along this line, I will then have a 9 inch, I'll have 9 inches for this waist measurement, yeah? So I'm going to cut it along this line, all right? And I'm going to add my seam allowance of 1 inch. So I'd have a 1 inch seam allowance going along here. So I have this on the fold and a 1 inch seam allowance there. And I'll be cutting on the fold and I'll do 2 pieces. So if you are interested in cutting out a half circle skirt that isn't very full, what you need to do is multiply the 5 inches we got here, multiply that by 2. When I multiply this by 2, I'm going to get 10. So now I am going to go ahead and measure out 10 inches, okay? 10 inches. I want it to be all the way down 10 inches. for a half circle skirt. This is the waist. Yeah, that's the waistline for a half circle skirt. This skirt won't be as full as a full circle skirt. This here, this waist is only 1/4 of your skirt. But then this one would give you half of the skirt. So if I cut this out, if I cut along this line, I will be cutting 4 pieces, 4 parts. Well, 2 on the fold, yeah? I'll be cutting out 2 on the fold. But then, if I cut along this line, if I cut along this waistline, I would be cutting only 2 pieces. I'll cut 2 pieces. This would give you a skirt that isn't too full. And this would give you a very full round circle skirt. So that's the purpose of, that's the reason why we've multiplied this by 2 in order to get this waist. I'm going to measure this to have a look and see if it would give me half of my waist measurement, which is 32 inches. Giving me 16 1/4 inches. So I have 16 1/4 inches. So with 16 1/4 inches, so if you cut your fabric on the fold, you would only need seam allowance along there. What happens if you want, so in order to get some seam allowance for this end here where your zipper is going to go, you need to come down by 1/2 inch. Remember, 1/2 inch. I could even go down by just 1/4 inch. I tell you why. I think I would go down by 1/4 inch because I had 16 1/4 over there. I might end up with too much of a waist measurement. So what I need to do now is go down by 1/4 inch. So my waist here, my waist seam allowance is going to be 1/4 inch. Otherwise I would have too much fabric and the skirt would end up being too loose. Do this, measure it all the way just to double check and make sure that we have enough for our seam allowance. So here I have this as 16 3/4, 16 3/4. So we are going to have a 3/4 inch seam allowance there. So here's my seam allowance over here for this skirt, 16 3/4. This would be the seam allowance. But then for this skirt here, the seam allowance would be 1 inch. I hope you understand what I've done here. 1 inch seam allowance. That's the difference. 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Sorry, 1/4 of an inch difference. That's what the difference is between this and that one. Okay, so when this is all cut out, we also need to identify how long our skirt is. That part is really easy. All you need to do is measure from this end here, the cutting line. Measure from your cutting line all the way up to how long your skirt's going to be. I wanted my skirt to be 22 inches. If my skirt's going to be 22 inches and I'm going to have a 1 inch band, a 1 inch waistband, I need to go back, take away 22 inch, take away 1 inch from 22 inches, and I'll be left with 21 inches. So I need to make sure that my skirt is 21 inches. That's where my 21 mark is. So what to do is, please watch this. I'm going to go all the way. I'm going to go all the way to this end here, all the way to this point there. When I go from there, I need to know where exactly that 21 inch ended. And that was at 31. So I'll then go down by 31 all the way. 31, mark it all around. If you need to add paper, add paper. All the way from this point here to 31. Mark 31 and join the points. When you do that, you would have your pattern ready, cut out and ready to sew. I hope you've learned how to create a full circle skirt and a half circle skirt. If you found this method useful, do let me know in the comments section, and if you have any ideas of what else you would like me to show you how to make, share with me on my social media or in the comments section, and we can take it from there. Thank you very much for watching yet another video from me, and I do hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.